Welcome to this, the Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. A wet one out there today, is it not? It certainly was a wet commute on the drive in this morning, but the good news is that it's relatively warm out there. I think it was 7 degrees that my vehicle was showing as a temperature when I was driving in. It's supposed to we could hit double digits today. And I'm sure you, like I, will take a double-digit day in the end of November each and every time. The news on the weather is that it's supposed to continue through the day today and into tomorrow. But I guess we should count ourselves lucky, because we know the problems that we've had as of late with regards to dry wells and this drought situation that we're in. But also, if you were watching, did you watch the CTV News last night and see Collen's update on that big snowstorm that's hitting northern Ontario today? Yeah, that one drives home the fact that winter is right around the corner. They're talking could be 60 centimeters of snow, 2 feet of snow there today. So I think we'll take rain over snow of that magnitude. I know many of you out there are like, bring the snow. It brings the festive season into focus, and we're into winter sports, and we like the skiing and the snowshoeing and all of the fun things that we get to do here in Nova Scotia. It's not really hockey season until the ground is white, or with the Christmas holidays right around the corner, gets you into the festive spirit. But my back and many of your backs out there will say, yeah, but that also comes with the shoveling, right? And the shoveling is not the most fun part of the winter season. I think I can say that. Did you watch the testimony yesterday before that legislative committee down at Province House? The CEO of Nova Scotia Power sat in the hot seat. I think it was over 2 hours yesterday, and fielded questions from politicians. As I had said on the show here yesterday, and I watched most of it. They get repetitive near the end. I think it's just the same question getting asked over and over again. But at the end of the day, a lot of theater, a lot of bluster, I think I called it yesterday. And at the end of the day, a few nuggets of new information came out of it, but nothing really was jaw-dropping to me, at least watching it. They did. Peter Gregg did say that it was a Russian-based group that was, they believe, responsible for the hacking, that they didn't pay the ransom, which I didn't know. I don't think I'd had seen that written anywhere. Saying that if they did pay it, because this group is on an American list, I think it was, that it would be illegal to do so, which is interesting to me. He did say that they're working around the clock to restore connections to meters, but that's going to take all the way to March. I know there's a lot of people across Nova Scotia. I know there's a lot of meters, but that just seems like an extremely long time. I got my second estimated Nova Scotia Power bill yesterday, and I looked at my first one that I had, and it had just a crazy number of days. I think it was 130 days was the billing period. But if you look at the kilowatt hours, they were a third of what I normally use. So they estimated it at 3 times what it should have been, but was a third less kilowatt hours. I still, and listening to some of the testimony yesterday, I still don't know how this whole and again, I'm not a smart math guy, but I still don't understand how this whole estimating thing works. This time around, again, as I don't know if it was red or not, but it was about where it should be, right? So I know many of you are getting bills, and this will be the second go-around. And if it's till March, some of us are going to get estimated bills at least once, if not 2 more times. Peter Gregg saying yesterday that they were going to make it good. They were going to make sure that this was all above board once the meters are read, and that they're confident that the meters are recording your electricity rates accurately. Somebody raised the question yesterday here on the show, and not being an IT genius, Vanessa will testify to that, that I'm under the impression that anything that's digital can be hacked. I don't know how the technology works, but Peter Gregg yesterday saying that he's confident at least that that the meters are reading your electricity usage properly. It's just a matter of getting a set of eyeballs on them and or getting them connected back to the network. He says the company, this one was kind of interesting. He said that somebody asked, well, you're getting extra money in from all of these overestimated bills. Will the company benefit from it, right? You're putting that into the bank, getting interest on the whole deal, not paying your creditors. That's the people that work for you, and keeping that money in the banks and gaining interest on that. Will the company benefit from any of this? And Mr. Gregg said that they will not, and that they're going to audit their books to verify that. So those were the nuggets that I got out of it. I'm sure you, those that watched it, probably got other bits of information or were a little disappointed in the lack of information that came out of the whole thing. Anyway, after the meeting yesterday, I saw a bit on the news from PC member Kyle McQuarrie, who said that he was going to go to caucus and recommend or at least get the debate started on issuing Nova Scotia Power a fine. And when somebody said, well, what kind of fine are you talking about? And he said it'll have to be a fine that would hurt the company. It would have to have at least 6 zeros behind it. So you can do the math on that. But at the end of the day, right, I think that Nova Scotia Power should face some kind of punitive action for what's happened. Right? They've put a lot of people out. They've exposed our private information to the dark web, and they're not paying their bills apparently to some. I think that they should face some kind of punitive action. But I mean, if it's a monetary fine, doesn't that just come from rates that we pay? I don't know what the answer is. But I think that that one we'll have to watch as we move forward. Also, I think Mr. Gregg said yesterday that they're in the process of removing SIN numbers, the social insurance numbers, from the system. I'm wondering why it's taking so long. Right, that should be a pretty easy fix. But again, I'm not in the know with regards to that. And of course, the other big story yesterday was, of course, the announcements of the death of Collen Jones. Lots of tributes coming in. They held a moment of silence down at the curling trials last night. Lots of comments from the curlers on the ice. Lots of comments from people in the stands. A lot of people in the curling community were kind of taken aback yesterday by the news that Collen had passed away at the age of 65. I first met Collen Jones at a charity pro-am event, a curling event at the Port Arthur Curling Club in Thunder Bay. What I remember most is that there were some, I call them real curlers, that were on the ice, and a bunch of people that maybe weren't. Maybe I fit in the maybe weren't category at that point. But she was so gracious with her time. She talked to everybody that approached her. You know, she of course at that point was going through this long streak that she had of winning Scotties. She was of course. She's Collen Jones, right? And everybody wanted to talk to her, and there was literally lines of people that wanted to speak with her, and she spoke to everybody like she was their friend. She spoke to everybody and answered all of their questions, and it was so generous with her time. What I remember most about that event, I've met her, had met her several other times since, but what I remember most about that was that big laugh that she had when somebody would say something funny, and that big smile. And she truly was an ambassador for curling, a proud Canadian, and of course a Nova Scotian right to the very end. The word legend, I think, gets used a little bit too much these days, but I think we truly lost a legend in Collen Jones yesterday, and we're very pleased to welcome into the show on the phone from the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame, our good friend Bruce Rainnie. Bruce, how are you?
Dan, good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about my pal, and you are not overusing the word legend there. It is perfectly apt in this circumstance.
There isn't anybody that's watched a curling event in the last, well, oh my goodness, I don't know, 30 years that doesn't know the name Collen Jones.
Well, you ask about who's the greatest female curler of all time, and she always would balk at that and be very humble and say, Jennifer Jones was more talented, Connie Lalaberty was more talented, Rachel Holman today is more talented. Here's what I'd say to that. a big part of talent is maximizing what God gave you. And she had a passion for this sport. And she, there are great cliches in sport about diligence and perseverance, but she made all of those cliches come true. And if you're talking about the greatest female curlers of all time, and there's a photo, she's in the front row of the photo. There's no question, and might be right in the very middle. A 6-time national champion, 2-time world champion. And I remember one time talking to her, I said, "How many provincials have you won?" She goes, I'm not sure now. That's always a good sign when you've won so many that you've lost count. So, and it was the way she did it too, with tremendous humility, with great affability, with tremendous respect for the opponent, but with an absolute down deep desire to win a curling game.
And that's just it, right? And of course, she also had a career for, 40 years, working off and on for the CBC. We saw her on the morning reporting live from Halifax and doing all the things that Colleen will do. And anybody that has met her on a professional level will tell you that she took some of that fire that she had out on the ice and she put that into her career in journalism and boy, got competitive for those stories.
You know what? She had 3 things in life that she wanted to be really good at. First of all, she wanted to be a great mom and wife. Put a big tick beside that. She was phenomenal. She wanted to be a really good broadcaster, and she did that at a national level to national acclaim. And she wanted to be a great curler. And you think about the discipline, the fortitude required to excel in 3 things, 3 disparate things like that in life, 3 real careers. She did it remarkably well. She was the best mom, really, I think I've ever seen. She was maybe the best female curler ever to throw a rock. And as a broadcaster, she started in radio years ago and worked her way up to being a regular featured performer on the national morning show for CBC. And I think she covered 11 Olympics, too, for the corporation, and one for NBC as well. So, she controlled what she could control. She compartmentalized beautifully. Whatever she was doing was the most important thing at that moment. She didn't really care about yesterday or tomorrow. And pretty good recipe for life in there, I think.
For sure. Bruce, she never really lost her respect for the game, right? She not only played it and not only was an ambassador for it, but also taught it to many of those names that you mentioned already, coaching and mentoring some of the country's best, some of the world's best.
Well, the old Irish always say you find something you love in life, you never really work a day in your life. And she found this curling thing really, really early on in life. And when I say she had a passion, I don't know if I've ever met anybody who loves something more than Collen Jones loved the sport of curling. It just was everything to her. She met her husband through curling, by extension had her family through curling, played it at the highest level, coached it at the highest level. Yeah, it's one of those things. If we could all be so lucky to find something we love that much,
Absolutely. Bruce, I know you're busy, and I know you're taking in all of the events down at the Scotiabank Centre, and I know just reading some of the comments from last night and watching some of the coverage that her loss is certainly weighing on the minds of those teams down there that are trying to vie to become Team Canada at the Olympics.
Yeah, you know what? She kept this very private for 3 years, so it sent a bit of a shockwave through the curling community yesterday. And I wanted to share with you, Dan, and this is going to sound like name dropping. It isn't. I got a text yesterday from the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins who had heard this news. And he's got a very nice way with words, as you know. And the end of his text said, "This is so sad. Colleen was awesome."
Right. And
I thought, man, what a perfect word for this woman. She was absolutely awesome. If you ever met her, you felt better about life and yourself, and her smile would fill up a room. Her laugh, as you mentioned, would fill up a room. She was indeed awesome. So you use the word legend. We're going to miss her immensely. She's one of the best we've ever had here.
Bruce, appreciate your time, sir.
Dan, appreciate your time. Thank you.
That is Bruce Rainnie. Of course, you'll hear Bruce calling the Olympic Games once they begin in Italy, and a close friend of Collen Jones. We're going to stop and take our very first break here. Wow, the words of Sidney Crosby, right? We'll take a break. We'll come back. A conversation with the country's Minister of Justice, MP Sean Fraser, will be your guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. Carrying on here on a Wednesday as the week continues to roll on. We're halfway through, folks. Some news earlier this week, the federal government appointing a new economic advisory committee for our region of the world. Justice Minister Sean Fraser, who is also, of course, a Nova Scotia MP, making the announcement on Monday, also the minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, saying this new 7-member panel, the Atlantic Economic Panel, has experience in growing companies and creating jobs, and is going to take a look at how and if we have perhaps not or we haven't taken full advantage, I will say, of the opportunities available to us. And we're very pleased to welcome the aforementioned Nova Scotia MP and the Justice Minister. That, of course, is Sean Fraser. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're able to spend a few minutes with us. You came up with a list of 7 names for this panel, and some of them include names that many people are familiar with, like Don Mills and Scott McCain and of course Mike Cassidy from the Maritime Bus. How did you come up with this with these people for this panel?
Well, look, we reached out initially to Don and frankly to business leaders first to get ideas as to who the most important voices would be to include on a panel seeking to set the appropriate goals and recommendations in a private sector-led initiative. And when Don and I sat down, it didn't take long to come to understand the value of the names that I would call next. Each of them, when asked, was excited to say yes and to contribute their talents and experience to the economy of the Atlantic region. So I'm thrilled with the path ahead. I think this is an unassailable group of people whose experience speaks for itself.
Sean, what's their mandate? What have they been tasked to do?
So they're going to be engaging with the business community and those who have thoughts or considerations on matters of economic growth and productivity, really to take advantage of what I perceive to be a potential turning point in the future of the Atlantic Canadian economy. We see a series of external factors that create new opportunities, whether it's the disruptions to trade and the need to diversify to partners other than the United States, the opportunities to build a grid that can handle new clean energy, not only for our own consumption, but to sell to the world, and the need to increase investments in defense and security as part of our NATO commitments, for example. Making sure that we're pointed in the right direction and that we've given thought to how to maximize the economic benefits of these investments to the region is part of what they're going to be looking for. So it's really about setting new and transformational ambitions for the Atlantic Canadian economy and ensuring that we have the appropriate degree of focus on the needs of the business community in order to overcome a long-standing productivity gap.
Sean, having this panel in place now, is it fair to say that maybe opportunities have been missed in the past and we don't want to repeat those mistakes?
Well, look, you could always litigate decisions taken over the course of our region's history, but I think what's more productive is to figure out where are the opportunities that are coming next. We don't have to accept that the Maritime provinces will respectively be 58, 59, and 60 on a ranking of the 60 provinces and states when it comes to productivity. We don't have to accept that young people have to move away from the region in order to find meaningful employment. If we take decisions now that allow us to maximize the economic potential of investments in new and emerging sectors, at the same time we seek to scale the traditional industries that have powered our economy, my view is that we can achieve a much higher level of economic growth and prosperity for the families who call Atlantic Canada home. So rather than focusing on what opportunities may have come and gone over the course of the past 150 years, figuring out what we can do today to take advantage of this turning point in the global economy to maximize the returns at home is what this is all about.
Minister Fraser, of course, Premier Houston has been very vocal about his plan for new and emerging industries, and that would be the Wind West projects. What's your thoughts on this project and if we're going to see it come to fruition?
So we are totally aligned. You'll notice with the Major Projects Office seeking expedited approvals for major projects that serve the national interest has signaled its interest specifically in the Wind West project. What will come next will be very important because it's not just necessary to get the framework in place to approve offshore wind projects. We also need to make sure that we're working seamlessly, not only with the provincial government in Nova Scotia, but New Brunswick and the other Atlantic provinces as well, in order to develop the grid capacity to handle handle the new generation, which currently would exceed the capacity of the grid. We also have to identify how we can improve and invest in our port infrastructure to ensure that we have the sufficient marshalling areas, laydown areas at our ports to allow these new developers to make major investments here. But the good news is, and particularly in response to decisions in the United States to more or less refuse the sector to continue operating or to continue expanding, is that I've personally sat down with wind developers who are looking to invest somewhere, and they want to see all the signals that their investment is wanted in Atlantic Canada and in Canada more broadly. So they're excited about the opportunity. The provincial and federal governments are going to align, and now it's about making sure we have the enabling infrastructure to see what could be a multi-billion-dollar industry get off the ground in our own backyard.
Sean, ask you if I may to put on your Minister of Justice hat on for a quick minute here. We're almost out of time. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court threw out the mandatory minimum sentencing, or earlier this month, mandatory minimum sentencing on things like child porn. National Post is reporting today that you're preparing to table some legislation to amend that. Is that in fact the case, and how are you making those changes?
Yeah, the Senville decision is the decision that you're referring to, and it highlighted some very narrow circumstances that rendered mandatory minimums for some pretty serious charges unconstitutional. That leaves an important gap. When we're dealing with crimes around the sexual exploitation and abuse of children and people who would produce or access such heinous material, we need to take action. Thankfully, we have been preparing over the last few months legislative changes that are going to better protect our kids against such abuse, including in an online environment. And we're going to be having a legislative fix that will directly address the gap left by the Supreme Court decision. Protecting our kids is not a partisan issue. This is an opportunity, in my view, for all parties to come together to address the very narrow set of circumstances that the court has identified in their decision and ensure that people who commit heinous crimes against our kids face serious penalties for their actions.
Planning to put those amendments in this session?
We intend to table legislation before we rise for the holidays, certainly, and we should expect over the next few weeks to see the legislation tabled in the House of Commons.
Minister Fraser, I know you're busy. I appreciate you joining us today.
A pleasure as always. Thanks again.
That is the Minister of Justice and Nova Scotia MP and the Minister responsible for ACOA, that being Sean Fraser. So it looks as if this panel will be struck, or it has been struck, and we'll look at some opportunities, and we'll report back by September of next year. In case you're curious who's on the panel, we mentioned the chair is Don Mills. Of course, well familiar with Don. He's appeared on this program many times in his past life, perhaps as the co-founder of Narrative Research. Also from New Brunswick, the Scott McCain from McCain Foods, which is that. Don't think I have to explain who that is. First Nation Chief Terry Richardson from New Brunswick. Mike Cassidy, the CEO of Cassidy Group, who owns Coach Atlantic Maritime Bus. Kathy Bennett, co-founder of Sandpiper Ventures in Newfoundland. Joyce Carter, the president and CEO of the Halifax International Airport Authority. And Ann Whalen, the lead director of the Bank of Canada. So I'll be interested to see what this group of business leaders in the community come up with, and how much appetite the federal government has to help foster those as we continue to look for ways to grow the economy in the face of the ongoing situation, can I call it, between our two countries, that being Canada and the United States. We're going to take a break here. Blake is going to update us on what's going on in the news. On the other side of it, the show continues. Libraries in areas outside of HRM are concerned about funding and impending cuts. A conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of the Annapolis Valley Regional Library. That's Julia Merritt. When we return, you're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. Glad you're able to spend a few minutes with us here on a wet Wednesday as we roll through your work week. Came across this story from the CBC earlier this week, and it certainly raised an eyebrow with me, as we know how important libraries are to our communities, particularly those in smaller communities. They're not only a place where you can go and check out a book and so on and so forth. They are truly cultural hubs. It's an area, a place where people can get together for community events. It's an area where people can get together and meet people. It's an area that people can get together and just be with one another. And some concern out there in the region outside of Halifax about sustainable funding for libraries moving forward. The head of the Regional Library Service in Western Nova Scotia, of a regional library service in Western Nova Scotia, says that without increased funding from the province and municipalities, branches will have to reduce operating hours and services and even cut staff or maybe even close some locations. The Annapolis Valley Regional Library considers the situation so grim that it's now placing posters in its 11 branches asking for people to contact their MLAs and municipalities to share their stories about why the library matters to you. Pleased to welcome to the program the CEO of the Annapolis Valley Regional Library. That's Julia Merritt. Julia, how are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine. This is a bit concerning, I would imagine, to the people that use the library each and every day.
Very much so. We know that the libraries are deeply entwined in their communities. The AVRL celebrated its 75th anniversary just last year. And these are buildings and places in community that that people have fundraised for, advocated for, volunteered at, and use on a very regular basis. So it's very much a part of the fabric of the community, and I know that people are very worried about it.
Now, you're calling for a change to the way that libraries are funded. How are you currently funded right now?
So we are calling for an update to the existing funding formula.
Right.
The funding formula as it is right now, the province contributes 71%, municipalities 26%, and the board is responsible for fundraising 3%. We had a funding agreement in place for 2020 until 2025, and we have not had an increase since this year when the funding formula expired. And so there's work to be done on ensuring that funding is sustainable and we can maintain the services and resources that we're offering to people.
I imagine libraries in the regions are faced with the same economic pressures that everybody is these days, with the rising cost of goods and utilities and those kind of things.
They are. We are in a position where the structure is such that the library board's primary responsibility is for staffing and materials, because the municipalities look after the operating costs for the buildings themselves. So the library boards are really grappling with the ongoing costs that are being increased to books, to digital books, and to wages and so on. So that's our main pressures, yes.
Now, our Council of Regional Libraries earlier this year, that's the umbrella organization for 9 regional libraries, asked for some emergency funding. Did you get that funding?
We asked for an additional $1.6 million this year to cover the increases associated with the minimum wage increases and other inflationary costs, and we did receive $800,000 from the province this year. Yes.
And it was half of what you asked for.
Yes, so it was very helpful. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover the shortfall, and so the library board is being proactive and looking ahead to 26, 27, and really wanting to make sure that we communicate with the public about the risks to service and have them engaged in the conversation, because these are such important places to them.
I know we don't want to see any kind of service reduction, Julia. Obviously, the library is well used right across the province, but should there be no extra funding coming, what kind of situation are you looking at? Are you looking at closing libraries?
At this point, yes, everything is on the table because this is not a new situation for us. The funding has been relatively flat for us for decades now, and so the library has already made significant service reductions over the past 10 years. We have reduced our workforce by about 25% with retirements and resignations. We no longer have a bookmobile service. We've reduced our programs by 50%, and we're no longer having the capacity to engage in partnerships with community organizations or government departments. So we've already taken many steps over the last 10 years to work within the funding parameters that we have. And so now we're at the point where anything more is going to be very drastically visible to the public in the order of hours reductions all the way up to branch closures. And because we're so lean in terms of staffing, that's going to naturally mean layoffs and fewer books and other resources for the public.
Now, the poster campaign that we talked about at the beginning of our interview today, Julie, obviously is going to create some discussion within the library patron community. What are the people that use the libraries asking and wondering about?
They're very concerned about the continued operation of libraries. I mean, people use the library for all kinds of different resources, right? Or reasons. It could be anything from needing to ask a question of the staff because they're looking for an answer and they don't know how to find it. They're looking for help with something technological like filling out a government form. They might need the Wi-Fi or the computers because there's a last mile issue with connectivity in their rural area, so they need access to those services. They're looking for books for their children to work on their school projects. They're looking for ways to connect with Canadian culture and society and take out books and movies and things of that nature. It's all walks of life and it's all different life stages.
What has the response been to your request from government? I know you got some emergency funding earlier this year, but obviously there's an issue with the funding model itself.
Yes, so we're still in communication with the government, conversation with the government. We've submitted our research on what the contemporary costs of library service are to the government. So we have been working with the Ministry of Culture on this file for some years now, and the lines of communication are certainly open, and we're working on it with them. So this is not something that's come out of the blue, but it is something that the board is now looking in the near-term future, really in the next 6 to 9 months, about having to make decisions that would impact the public. And so it was time for the board to make those communications to the public.
Julia, what can people do to help? Can they write their MLAs? Is that the best method of approach here?
Yes, it's very important for if you have concerns about public library service and you feel strongly about public library service in your communities, to take the time to share your own personal story with your MLA and your municipal elected officials, because they are the decision makers and the funding bodies. And so it's important for them to understand just how important the library is to people.
Julia, keep us in the loop, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is Julia Merritt. She is the CEO of the Annapolis Valley Regional Library. This is a bit of concern considering how vital a role these things play, right? Libraries are really a cornerstone of all, particularly in the rural areas. I mean, the libraries in HRM are funded a little differently. More of that funding comes from you and I from City Council. But the regional areas, the people rely on these things even more, and not to see an increase in that funding for all these years, and you know how much your household expenses have come up. It would be a shame to see these facilities have to further reduce staff or maybe even close. What would you do without a library, right? We're going to take a break. On the other side of it, changing gears up a little bit, we haven't had a conversation with Ron James for a long time. Of course, the famous comedian is starting up something a little bit different than we've become accustomed to seeing with Ron and his comedy tours. He's going high-tech-ish. It's called A View From Here. Ron James has got a new special out. We're going to talk to him about it when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Back in minutes. Well, we've seen our next guest on many different programs over the years. We've seen him live here in Halifax. We've seen him all over the Maritimes. We've seen him on television, on our sets from all over the world. His one-hour comedy specials, of course, have become extremely famous. And he's back at it again, and I'm very pleased to welcome to the program to tell us a little bit about this new venture that Ron James is going on. The man himself, and that's Ron James. Ron, how are you?
Oh, I'm Jim Dandy. Thanks a million for having me on. It's I was just thinking, about that last show on the facts, man. The laughs roll up to the stage like a rogue wave. Just fantastic. It's always a great time playing the city I was raised in.
Right.
Always a bonus.
Ron, it wasn't that long ago. If I'd have said on the radio that Ron James was streaming, it would have a whole different connotation.
It would, wouldn't it? No, yes, I am. And I decided I had a clip of mine from a special, believe it or not, in 2016 when Trump won, which was a surprise. I had a long rant on him that I wrote the night before, and it went viral on Midas Touch. And with close to 3 million views now. And I thought, well, boy, this might be a good idea, given the tariff war and the threats to the 51st state, which I'd been posting about and getting good response for online, to write a show specific to that issue. And it's called The View from Here. And it's my take on the last year we've been living since the great American experiment blew up in the lab and outmarched the Tangerine Genie.
Right.
And because we haven't, and America really hasn't had a perspective from our side of the fence, so to speak, as to the impact of this dictator on us and the world at large. And it's also about, I'm 68 at the end of January, and my generation. The bulletproof days of yore are long gone. I like to say from time to time that I'm from a day where a hashtag was something you got from getting too close to the hash knives. I hope I don't alienate any viewers, listeners rather.
No.
But so yeah, man. We're just 20 years away from roaming the home in our Led Zeppelin onesies, just a sing along away from taking a stairway to heaven.
Right.
So with mortality being the new reality for so many of us, we're losing such good people, such good friends. Collen Jones just passing away yesterday, and my buddy Peter Bayless, the point man for the Hopping Penguins and singer of the national anthem at all those Moosehead games, taken so young and so fast. It's something that makes you aware that what's imperative is to make the moments matter, because those are the things that matter most, and the rest is just a spoiler on a Dodge Neon. And so I think these, threats to our sovereignty and threats to our mortality have caused us to give pause and reflect on some things. And so as much as it is a funny show, it's also a show about what it means to be, I think, Canadian at this juncture in our nationality.
Ron, we know obviously the subject matter and the Canada-U.S. relationship and the a leader in the United States in Donald Trump. We're a fractured society these days, and partisanship is about as strong as it can possibly be. Is it difficult as a comedian to find a spot in there? Because I can tell you from this chair, if I say something about Donald Trump and somebody doesn't like it, I certainly hear it.
Oh, buddy, it's every tongue in the Tower of Babel is flapping with so many conflicting opinions. Any minute I expect to see the horses of the apocalypse taking a dump in my deck. It's crazy. I was weighing in favor of my candidate online during the election, and I think the right man won. Come on, man. He's got a degree in economics from Harvard and a master's from Oxford. whose pedigree has been tested in such international corridors of power, even the flatulence smells like money, where the other guy had a BA degree that took him 8 years to get by correspondence, whose only job was a paper route. Not to disparage paper routes, I had one too when I was 12. Cue the angry online trolls.
There you
Ron
go.
James. I heard, but you know what? It's a great time to be a comedian because it's our job to speak truth to power. And, you know, I mean, in the days that Chrétien was running the ship, I hit him too. And I'd hit Harper. But one thing about the Liberals, man, I mean, they're not going on about, they're not trying to shut you up, right? They're not.
Right.
I mean, you know, for a party that's going on about freedom all the time, they sure love, you know, the cons and the Republicans, they sure love telling comedians to shut up. It's all about micromanaging the message. And Orwellian oppression of anything that deigns to tip the apple cart. So I'm not going to toe that party line. Look, I learned my craft years ago at Second City in Toronto, at 110 Lombard Street.
Right.
And that was the days, too. I mean, we were just a cast away from John Candy and Eugene and Gilda, or cast or two, rather. And one of the mandates there was to speak truth to power. We tried our best. And as much as you would have scenes that might have been political, you also had scenes that were just light and funny for the sake of being funny. And that's sort of a standard I've carried through my shows. It's strange, though, you know. I did 2 hours and 10 minutes on stage in Moncton and Halifax. Okay, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Same in Fredericton, not a break. I figure that's a decent bang for your buck when people are laughing all the time.
Right.
And but I had somebody, and I had maybe 5 minutes on Polyev, and that's what they hung a hat on, with 2 hours and 10 minutes of comedy.
Right.
So that's the difference right there, is that even if, you know, that's the difference. It's so partisan. But, if you're not ticking some people off, you're not doing your job.
I hear that all the time.
And I don't think it ever
all the
stopped
time.
Carlin in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
He said what he had to say.
Ron, you mentioned Second City, and you mentioned John Candy. I know that you did some work with John Candy. We, of course, saw the documentary at TIFF this year, and I Like Me. What are your thoughts on that legend being John Candy?
Oh, my gosh. He was a master of the craft. And they all were. I mean, they were the totems that we looked up to. I mean, we were scrawny young satirists making $350 a week. And when you have John Candy sitting in the audience watching the previews to the show you're going to, you know, premiere in a couple days, and he gives you a compliment, that's the soul's collateral, because we sure didn't have any collateral at the bank.
Right.
But you can bank those accolades. And it was a validation that you're on the right road. And John Candy, he was so quintessentially Canadian because he really was the humble everyman, and yet nobody's fool, right?
Right.
And I think that he really was the finest example of our comedic export. He really was, and he was really one of the really first. You know, I mean, yeah, Aykroyd was there, and Gilda was there on Saturday Night Live, but John brought this. Attitude and inner strength and vulnerability to his work. You know, it's been 38 years since was it 32 or 38? I just saw the meme today, since Planes, Trains, and Automobiles came out. And it's very difficult to play comedy and drama in the same note. And the Canadian industry is notorious for just pegging people in in one, just putting people in one box. Oh, you're funny? Well, you can't do drama. And yet time and time again, you see comedians or comedic actors, which is what John was, step up to the plate and prove that wrong. And he, I've not read Paul's book yet, but his brother Mike joined the touring company a year after I was in it. And so I've known him since 1981. And the dedication that John had to his craft, which is something that Paul speaks of about his brother Mike meeting John, he was also encouraging. He was helpful. He was supportive, and he was a big believer in the art form of comedy and its purpose. And you can be a believer all you want. There's lots that are, but to be proficient with the talent that you've been given is something else. He was great, and I was so fortunate in those days to be asked to do a guest role from time to time on SCTV. And I mean, in those days we were just trying to make rent, right?
Right.
And all you were doing was trying to do the best job you could, because I mean they could be an intimidating bunch, having Eugene Levy in the makeup chair beside you at 7 a.m. in the morning working on a Henry Kissinger impression, drunk. And then on the left-hand side is Marty Short doing already at peak, I thought, doing a Howie Mandel impression. But they were scientists of comedy. They really were. They were, and for Canada, they really proved, I think, that we had our own way of walking through the world and carrying a uniquely Canadian perspective when it came to the funny.
The special streams November 28th at 7:30 Eastern. That's 8:30 our time. Ron, how do we see it?
You go to Eventbrite, and then you can just buy your ticket at Eventbrite. I think it's $11. So that's a pretty good deal if you didn't see the show in Halifax.
Right.
And it's going to be a 90-minute show, and there'll be a lot more material that I didn't do in Halifax, by the way, if you're curious. And it's got, a definitive beginning, middle, and an end, and with lots of funny, but some poignant moments too.
Ron, appreciate your time, sir.
I appreciate yours. Thanks a million.
That is Ron James. Eventbrite.ca is the site. Get your tickets. I'll guarantee you, he'll make you laugh. We're going to take a break. Open hour on the other side. Nope, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for Dr. John Gillis. I was testing you. It's time for house calls. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the news. Welcome back. It is time, of course, for house calls. Dr. John Gillis is in the house who will be here to answer your medical-related questions. A good opportunity to get some advice on a Wednesday. Lines are now open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. And we welcome Dr. John Gillis back into the show today. Dr. John, how was your trip to Ireland?
Oh, it was good. It was good. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Good. Back in Canada, I assume now?
Yeah, no, I get back on Monday, so it was pretty smooth. The game I was at, unfortunately, was two of the best teams in the world, but the referee couldn't keep his whistle and his yellow cards in his pocket, so it was one of the worst I'd seen for that, but stuff happens.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, as usual, we like to sort of ask the questions. I know you've been away for a while, but what's it like out there? Are we still seeing the same kind of viral stuff?
Yeah, I was in the air yesterday, day shift, and it was just a mixed bag of everything. Viral stuff, chest pains, heart attacks, headaches, you name it. Bit of everything. It was it's quite busy. the backup wasn't as bad as it has been. Like we were able to, mostly keep moving, but it does come and go.
Again, that telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We'll dig into the email bag here, Dr. John, to kick things off. This email comes to us and reads, I had H. pylori infection in August of 2024, and again now, why would someone catch it twice? And would it, or rather, could it be that it never went away? Should all family members get tested for it? Can it spread through the household? If you don't have any symptoms, can it still lead to ulcers and possible stomach cancer? Lots of questions there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. H. pylori is a bacteria that lives in the stomach, which can promote acid and ulcers. Sometimes when we treat it, the antibiotics and the drugs we use don't, get all of it, so it recurs. You can be cleared from it and get it again through exposure to, food or other things. So it is possible to get it again. How it presents in different people varies. Some people, it's there and they don't even notice it. Other people, as noted, it can cause ulcers and things. So, generally the rule is if you have it, to get it treated, to stay on top of it and to not ignore it. So that'd be my suggestion.
Can you spread that to different members of your family? Should you do the cleaning and all that stuff?
Yeah, generally, it's not contagious in the sense of how we think of a virus or COVID spreading through the air, but, exposure to, different, saliva, other bodily fluids can theoretically pass it on. But, again, not typically what we think of is, I have COVID, I cough, and you inhale it and I get it. But it can spread, yes.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lines are wide open, folks. If you want to get into the show and have a conversation with Dr. John, here is a perfect opportunity. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Another email question, Dr. John says, hi there. For a couple months, the veins on my fingers and knuckles have become super visible. I was wondering if this is normal or if it's the sign of a possible medical issue, and it's concerning.
Yeah, it's hard to answer. As people age, veins tend to become more prominent. If people are fit, active, losing weight, that sort of thing, they can become more prominent. I guess it really depends, on the how and the why. So I would say for most people, it's fairly normal, unless it's, if you notice a really sudden change, swelling, redness, pain with it, you should definitely get it checked. And, if you're not sure, the safer move, is always to get it checked.
And people obviously would, varicose veins, I know is a thing, but that doesn't happen in your hands, right? That's in your legs, or does that happen anywhere?
It's typically in the legs, yeah. The concept can happen, but we don't really see it in the arms to the same degree, no.
Fair. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Another email question for you, Dr. John. It says, my daughter has recently been experiencing her heart rate jumping from her resting rate, which is about 100, to anywhere to about 170 or even 200 for no apparent reason. It happens while she's watching TV or just sitting and chatting. It seems to last anywhere from a couple minutes to about 15 minutes. The first time she noticed it happening, she told me about it a couple of days after the fact. I told her to go see the doctor right away. The doctor had her use one of those portable heart monitors for 24 hours, but she didn't have an episode during that time. And about a week later, it happened again. She told the doctor says it's nothing to worry about. Any ideas?
Yeah, we see a lot of people coming in complaining of palpitations, and unfortunately often by the time they come in, the episode is gone, or even if they get a monitor, for a period of time, it doesn't pick it up. So it's very hard to say what it is. I often suggest people, if they're able, it's a device called a Cardia Mobile, which is Kardia. It's just a little thing. It looks like it's like about 3 inches long and 1 inch wide, little metal thing you put your fingers on, and it'll actually trace your heart rate and pair with your phone, and you can record it. So if someone's able to go on Amazon and get one of those, it's nice because if you're having an episode, you can just turn it on and record the thing and then show your doctor that. I mean, I've done that with patients a few times, particularly some folks that are traveling. They keep it with them and they'll be like, here's what's happened. So, without evidence, it's very hard to comment, but that might be how you get the evidence.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Dr. John's here on the other side. You're listening to House Calls. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis, here to answer your medical questions. If you have a question for the doctor, beautiful opportunity to do that right now. Lots of lines open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. And I'm getting a couple email questions, Dr. John. People asking if there's a medical cure for the ails that are the Toronto Maple Leafs these days.
I don't know, man. I think we need to, find Johnny Bauer with a Ouija board and bring him back or something.
Right.
It's just bad. Like, just no goaltending. I thought Joseph Wall was going to make a difference, but has not.
It's uncomfortable territory being a Maple Leaf fan, looking at the blue and white sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, no, and it's like I don't think people expected that. I think people expected them to do better, but here we are. So.
No magic cure, no doctor magic to fix it, no pill.
If I was that good, I would have done it years ago.
Right, fair enough.
The worst that's been driving me crazy the last couple of weeks is all the kids in their lingo saying 6-7 all the time.
Right.
Somebody's decided to say, well, they invented that to make fun of the Maple Leafs because they haven't won since '67. So that's just one more kick in the teeth while we're down.
There you go, because you've never is there a date that Maple Leaf fans know better than 1967? Just saying.
Well, I don't think so.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lines are wide open, folks. If you want to join the conversation and have a chat with the doctor, here's a good opportunity to do so. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Another email question. It says, hi, Doc. Over the last couple of days, I've been experiencing a strange pain near my ear. It sometimes feels muffled. I'm assuming that meant that their ear is. My eyes hurt. They kind of feel stiff. Also, feel a pressure-like sensation in my neck and at the back of my head. I've noticed that now walking a little bit off of balance. I also had muscle pain and general weakness, especially in my hands. I might drop things unintentionally. My memory's feeling worse. I forget simple things and feel a bit lost during tasks. My sleep has been, because of this, very irregular. I usually sleep from around 4 in the morning to noon. I don't feel rested. I'm not sure if these symptoms are due to tension, anxiety, poor sleep, or something more physically.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot there. I mean, if you're having memory issues and headaches and that sort of thing, it could be something simple like a sinus infection or an ear infection, but it could be something more serious. And if it's starting to affect day-to-day life, it probably needs a workup. And that might be your family doctor, or that might be going to the hospital if, again, memory and head pressure and that sort of thing sometimes need scans. So not that we like to drag people in, but sounds like this may require it.
I hear a lot, Dr. John. I know we talk about migraines and headaches a lot around here, but I just over the last week or so, with the change in this to more of a stormy, wet, rainy kind of situation that we've had here, I'm hearing from people in my circle and in the building here that they're really starting to get like pressures behind their eyes and in their sinuses. Is it weather dependent? Can it be weather dependent?
Yeah, well, changes in pressure can cause sinus pain. It's the whole issue of respiratory infections. The more people are indoors, more likely they are to get a virus or a bacterial infection just by proximity to other people. So it all sort of fits with the time of year, yes.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones and welcome Adam to the show. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, gentlemen?
Good. Your question for the doctor, please.
Dr. John, I've had some history of acid reflux. Was diagnosed with GERD a few years ago. Had a gastroscope a couple years ago, but recently I've been having trouble swallowing. It's almost like I have a sore throat and I have to force myself to swallow. Liquids I can swallow no issue. Foods I can swallow no issue. And I've also got a pain in right between my shoulder blades, and it's almost like the globus sensation where I have something stuck, but it's not in my throat. It's further down between my chest. I just recently, and I've also got a pain in my right side clavicle. I just had a chest X-ray that came back clear. There was no mention of the clavicle in the report for the X-ray, and they've referred me to get another gastroscope, so I'm waiting on that. So just wanted to confirm that. Although the chest X-ray said everything looks good in the chest, there was no mention of the clavicle. I just wanted to confirm that they would have looked at that with the chest X-ray, and if you've ever seen or heard that, and if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, so a chest X-ray is mainly meant to show, lungs and ribs, although you do see the upper abdomen and you do typically see the shoulders and the collarbones there. Unless you're worried about a break with a fall, I think it'd be unlikely that it would show anything. A chest X-ray is not going to give you a good idea of your esophagus if you're having trouble swallowing stuff, if there's a narrowing or the function is bad, if it's not moving things along. So in that case, the only way to do that really is an upper scope. An X-ray is not going to help with that. So, if that's the case with the swallowing difficulties, I would be inclined to pursue that and try to get yourself referred for an upper scope.
Which she did give me a referral to, so I'm just waiting to hear back on that now. So,
well, I hope that works out. The collarbone, could be a number of things. It may just be, some local inflammation. But again, collarbones don't break except with high force, so it's probably nothing too serious. But again, if it's not settling down, get looked at again.
Best of luck, Adam. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. And welcome Christina to the show. Christina, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm great. Dr. John, I apologize, gentlemen, a question regarding weight loss. I'm in the dreaded perimenopause stage, and I should be gaining weight. My doctor is fantastic. We've done lots of rounds of blood work. Graves runs in my family, so we've been really diligent on checking my thyroid. Unfortunately, fortunate in the sense that I've lost 60 pounds in a year without trying, and I'm maintaining my weight, but oh my gosh, I eat so much, and my doctor is baffled as I should be gaining weight. And is there anything else that you can recommend that we check for? We've checked, I've done MRIs, CAT scans, 3 rounds of blood work. Nothing is coming up. Everything is coming back normal, and we're still at a loss. And I'm hungry all the time. Any suggestions?
I assume you've been checked for celiac and H. pylori and that sort of thing.
Yes. Yep.
Again, you'd expect diarrhea and other symptoms with those things. And
oh yeah, everything's a mess right now, and I'm constantly yelling at my body to function properly. But with food prices, of course, I'm eating big meals. Like Thanksgiving, for one, I had 3 helpings of meals, and 3 with 2 pieces of pie, and that was in the middle of the afternoon. And when I got home, my metabolism burned through so much. I went home and I had a couple of hot dogs, and I haven't gained any weight. So I'm a little concerned in that sense. Graves does run through my family, but nothing is coming up that I've got the symptoms for it. So I'm at a loss.
Yeah, look, it sounds like whoever's taking care of you has covered a lot of things. Probably your next step would be to go see GI. Have you had any imaging? You said you had an MRI of what?
Yeah, MRI, CAT scan. We're going to do an ultrasound on my belly just to be safe, but everything's been coming back normal. Of course, the results, they always say unremarkable, which always makes me feel good, but at this point, I want something to be wrong so that we can fix it. But like I said, she's fantastic, but we're kind of at a loss of what to do next.
Yeah, I guess the only 2 things I would say is if you haven't been referred to a gastroenterologist, do that. And sometimes talking to a dietitian even though there may not be anything obvious, just to do a review of what you are eating and when you're eating it to see if there's any patterns that they can pick up on. That's frustrating. I'm sorry you're going through that.
Thanks for calling, Christina. Best of luck. I hope they get it sorted out for you soon. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John Gillis is here. We're going to stop for the news, and on the other side of it, we'll continue with house calls. So if you have a question, lots of lines open, folks. If you want to get any, get that call done. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, we're back. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis, and he is here to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question for the doctor, maybe want a second opinion on something, here's a great opportunity. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Got an email question, Dr. John, and I have a story that I can attach to this. The person is asking if it's okay to mix caffeine, particularly energy drinks, with antibiotics like amoxicillin.
Yes, it's not typically something that I've heard any concern about. I guess that's an email question, no context.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any reason. I mean, sometimes absorption and stuff, but as far as I know, there's no issue.
The story that I have with regards to it is last week sometime I had a bit of a headache, so I was taking an Advil and I was taking it out of the jar in my office, and I grabbed the pill and I popped it in my mouth, and I grabbed my coffee cup and I slurped it down to wash the pill down, and one of the house moms around here got mad at me saying that I shouldn't be taking any kind of medication with a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I mean, it can irritate your stomach. Any med can. It can make you jittery when you're taking pills that can make you jittery, but there's no specific interaction that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed something. But
fair enough.
I think you're good.
All right. I managed to survive, so I managed to get through it, but I just wanted to kind of dispel the house mom around here. Anyway, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I know I drink way too much coffee, but that's how we keep the show up and running. Let's go to the phones, shall we? And welcome John to the show. John, how are you?
I'm doing fine. A question for the doctor, please.
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Doctor, I had an ablation done for AFib, and I read an article by Dr. Byrne in the paper a couple of days ago. There's no need for blood thinners anymore after an ablation. What's your thoughts?
Sorry, you were a little crackly at the beginning. You said you had an ablation for what?
I'm sorry. AFib, afibrillation?
You had AFib. Yeah, so typically based on your risk, and there's a number of different factors, people who've had ablations can come off the blood thinners after several months. I had one. I had one 2 years ago, and I think I was on the thinners for another maybe 60 days. I'm just going from memory, but I mean, they base that on other risk factors and stuff. That's pretty standard. The reason for the blood thinner is AFib increases your risk of strokes. If the AFib is gone, which, thankfully it is in my case and hopefully in yours, then the risk goes away, but they do tend to leave you on them for a period of time just to make sure there's no clot that's built up over time. So that's the answer.
Appreciate it, John. Best of luck. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. An email question about ticks, and this time, Dr. John, it's not about Lyme disease. The writer says, can the doctor speak about, and I might pronounce this wrong, babesiosis? He says, I had a recent scare with babesiosis positive tick on a dog. Learned it's a protozoa-based infection that isn't commonly tested for in humans, but they can catch it. What's the real risk?
Can you spell that for me?
BABESIOSIS.
Yeah, right, okay, fair enough. Yeah, so something we see very rarely. As you said, it's a parasite that can get into people's bloodstream. I don't think I've ever seen a positive case of it. I guess the question is, is the emailer having symptoms or what's the pattern here?
Right.
Is the question, do they need treatment? I'm just not sure what they're asking.
It could be just because, as you and I, obviously I deal with ticks a lot because I'm in the woods a lot. This is my first discussion about this. I didn't even know how to say it. So maybe just some concern that it's something that they'd not heard of before.
Yeah, pretty rare thing that is tick-borne. Again, I can't think of having seen a case in this area. That doesn't mean it's possible, and impossible rather. And if we can't find reasons for different illnesses, we may look for this. I'm just looking at where it's endemic, and sort of Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Wisconsin. Now this may be American data. But again, it's not, you hear about Lyme disease
right.
all the time in this country. I can't think of a case that I've seen here.
Fair enough. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Another email question. This one comes to us from Jason. It reads, I recently lost 40 pounds, and I got 20 to go to reach my goal weight. I've been doing bi-monthly bioimpedance tests, which consistently put my ideal weight at 208 pounds. Why is it that the bioimpedance ideal weight is so much higher than the BMI calculation target weight, which is 170 to 180 pounds? He said he's a 51-year-old male. He's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, look, none of these are perfect. Bioimpedance tests, I don't know a ton about it, but I think it involves using electrical currents to help assess body composition. Body mass index has never been a good test because it doesn't account for different bone structures, different genetic groups, how people may be built differently. According to the BMI, I'm supposed to be 178 pounds or something. I've been that since I was 14. It's just not going to happen. So, I think, you can use these things as guides, but how you feel, your percent body fat, your activity level and energy, should be the main guidelines. But again, I don't get too fussed about a BMI index. It misrepresents most people.
Yeah, there was back in the day when I was in the military, guys were getting turfed out because they were bodybuilders, right? Because they're just huge, and then their BMI gets all out of whack.
Yeah, that's it. And there are better scales now. We don't tend to rely on it as much, but again, it's important to focus on being healthy, not just on a number, of course.
If somebody wanted to know, Dr. John, what their ideal weight or where they should be, obviously when we go to see the doctor, I'm using myself as an example. My doctor always says that I should shed a certain amount of weight, and there's an ideal weight for my my height, my style of activity. Is there a place to go to get that, or is it just based on each case?
I think it's very individual. There are different guides online. This one that the Canadian government publishes, but I think it's still very focused on BMI levels, and I don't put a lot of value in that because again I think it overcalls people. So case by case, talk to your doctor, talk about how you feel, and keep moving and watch what you eat.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. House Calls continues after the break. All right, welcome back. Dan Olstern along with you. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis, and he's here to answer your questions. If you have a question for the doctor, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lines are wide open. We're almost out of time, but you can get an opportunity to get in there very quickly and get that question answered. Dr. John, I got an email during the break from a listener who said that a couple of shows ago, we were talking about restless leg syndrome. He said, can you please explain what this is, what causes it, and if it's preventable through things like exercise, and any remedies that you suggest for those that may have this disorder?
Yeah, so restless leg is basically a situation where people's, legs, kind of involuntarily at night, causing them to be really restless and have a hard time settling. And it sounds odd if you've never, talked to somebody who's had it or never seen it. It just, it's almost hard for someone to explain it to you. And then, if they say, well, your legs are moving, tell them to stop or just still. But it's an involuntary thing that, make it very hard for people to rest and sleep. It relates to the body's dopamine systems, which are the chemicals that, control, feelings of happiness, but also, movement and, how we our neurotransmitters. Can just run in families, and maybe nothing that anybody's done. Some medications can make it worse. Another cause is if people have, low iron or low red blood counts. It can do it, and it can go along with, a number of other chronic medical conditions. There are medications that can help it out there. So I guess, the general approach here is, make sure there's not something correctable, whether it's anemia or medication. If it is genetic, try and minimize your relaxation, your sleep environment so that, it's easier to get to sleep. And some people do need, medications for this sort of thing, and there are a number out there. So that's sort of the general approach.
Exercise help it at all?
I think it's hit or miss for people. I think it may help people feel more active and, be more tired if they're busy, but I don't think it, it specifically prevents it.
Can it be a sign of other things like diabetes or something along those lines?
Not specifically diabetes. I mean, as I said, it can go along with other medical conditions, and that's why it's important, to rule out other medical conditions that can be causing it, and why some routine blood work would typically be done to help work this up.
Oh, diet. Do different foods trigger it, like salt or something like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Someone else may have some more info on that than I do, but no, not typically.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Eve to the program. Eve, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Dr. Gillis, for this wonderful service you provide. I have a question regarding tapeworms. Which test would be the most definitive if you had one?
Sorry, could you repeat that? That just clipped out for a second.
Oh, I wanted to know which test would be the most definitive to ascertain if you had the tapeworm or not.
A tapeworm, okay. Well, I mean, probably stool. They do a stool test for what we call ova and parasites. So it's, very exciting stuff. You literally poop in a little bottle and they analyze it to see if they see eggs or any evidence of, worms or other parasites. Tapeworms aren't real common, but that's typically how we would look for that sort of thing. So you'd ask your doctor for a stool test.
Thanks, Eve. Appreciate the question. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, I think that's going to about do it for us today, and we're going to cut you a couple minutes off and get out there and enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the dreary weather. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right, Dr. John. That is Dr. John Gillis. He is our medical professional, as we call him. He's here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock to answer your medical-related questions. And I look forward to this segment every day. As Eve said, valuable service, I think. And I think that a lot of good questions get asked during this segment. We're going to get ready here to take a break. We got a few minutes in front of it here. The open hour, of course, will take over after 12 o'clock today. And, of course, regular rules apply with the open hour. You can chat about whatever it is that you want to chat about as we roll into the Midweek Meltdown, I think we used to call it. But there's a lot of things out there that I think that you might want to be willing or might want to talk about. You may want to share your thoughts on the loss of a Nova Scotia curling legend, that being Collen Jones. We learned that yesterday afternoon that she had passed away after a 3-year battle with cancer. If you have a story or share an experience that you had with Collen, this is would be a good opportunity to do that when we open up the telephone lines afternoon. Yesterday, the CEO of Nova Scotia Power, that was Peter Gregg, testified before a legislative committee, faced the hot seat, if that's what you want to call it, and answered some questions. Not a lot of new things that popped out of that 2-hour session, but a couple of nuggets, I think. One, we finally know where they think this cyber attack came from. Apparently, it was somebody in Russia that did this. I don't think it was alleged to be the Russian government behind it, just some entities in Russia that were responsible for the cyber attack. Peter Gregg also yesterday saying, and I stand to be corrected, but this is the first time that I think I've heard them say that they did not pay the ransom, that this was a ransomware attack and they didn't pay the ransom. And that I think, and I do stand to be corrected, but I think that is the first time I've heard that. He said as part of his testimony yesterday that because this entity, this Russian entity that was responsible for this cyber attack, was on some list of nefarious organizations, particularly in the United States, that paying the ransom would be illegal. I had not heard that before. Not to suggest that it's not, but that was an interesting tidbit that came out for me. He went on to say that the staff at Nova Scotia Power are working around the clock to restore connections to the smart meters. That's where this estimating thing has kind of been born from. Their staff working around the clock, but he did say that it's going to take until March to get everybody connected. That just feels like it's an awful long time for me. And I know there's a lot of meters, and I know there's likely some lots of work that has to happen in order to do that. But all of that stuff being said, March just seems like a long time, doesn't it? That means that I'm into my second estimated bill now. I got mine yesterday. That means at least one more, right, before we get connected back to the smart meters. Now, I don't know, and I couldn't find it on the bill. I'll have to look at it again, but I couldn't find on the bill where it said that that my meter had been read. But I should have brought it in. I know. I'll take a look at it when I go home. But I did look at my estimation, and for the not for this period, but the period before, they estimated me, I think it was 138 days. But then I looked at the kilowatt hour usage, and it was about a third of the kilowatt hours that I usually use. So was it higher than it usually is? It was a little bit. Not some of the examples that I've heard from you folks out there who've seen, 2 and 3 times their regular bill. That wasn't the case for me. But now we're going to see another estimated bill, and now we're going to see a third estimated bill. And then at the end of the day, that Mr. Gregg said that they're going to make it right, and they're going to credit people who are or have seen an overpayment. We heard from somebody yesterday on the open hour who said that they had received a bill in the mail this week that had I think was a $70 credit attached to it. Mine did not. Mine was certainly is asking for money. One of the more interesting questions that came out of the debate yesterday, and I shouldn't even call it debate, or after the legislative committee yesterday, was one of the politicians or one of the people there asked Mr. Gregg if the utility was going to benefit from this by overcharging customers and then holding those extra funds in their bank account and then making interest off of it, or by keeping money in their bank account and not paying their creditors, as we have seen. And Peter Gregg said that the company would not benefit from it, and that at the end of this, they were going to do an audit and make sure that wasn't the case. That was the words from him. And also said that they have a really good insurance policy. I heard that clip coming into work this morning, that they have a really good insurance policy, and that insurance will be paying the cost of this cyber attack and the fallout from it rather than the ratepayer. Those are some of the things that I heard during the during the meeting yesterday and then watching the media coverage of it after. A bit of a scrum after the session was over with Kyle McQuarrie, who's a PC member on the committee that this happened before yesterday, and said that he was going to go to caucus and start the debate on creating a fine for Nova Scotia Power. When asked what kind of fine, he said it has to hurt and it has to have at least 6 zeros behind it. So that might be something you want to talk about today. Your thoughts on what Peter Gregg had to say, and should there be some kind of punitive measure issued against Nova Scotia Power? I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on that. That or whatever else is on your mind. It's the beauty of the open hour. We're going to do that right after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. Number 3 on a Wednesday, and that means it's time for our open hour, the Midweek Meltdown, as it has been called in the past. The telephone lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your opportunity to discuss whatever you want to. It's the beauty of the open hour. Regular rules apply, right? You can talk about whatever it is on your mind. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are now that you've had some time to digest some of the testimony that you saw yesterday in front of a legislative committee when the CEO of Nova Scotia Power sat down and laid it all out before the break. What I saw, I'm curious to see what you saw. As I had predicted on the program yesterday, a lot of bluster, a lot of politicians doing what politicians do. But at the end of the day, we learned a little bit more, but nothing really changed, did it? The real change came at the end of the meeting, and that was when Kyle McQuarrie, who was a PC MLA, said that he was going to go to caucus and recommend that the province start working on a fine for Nova Scotia Power for this cyber breach that has exposed most of our private information to this Russian actor, whatever they call it, Russian entity that they allege is responsible for this cyber attack. We did learn that it was a ransom attack, and that Nova Scotia Power did not and said they could not pay the ransom to get the information back from the dark web because that would be illegal. Now, not to say that they're wrong, but I'd not heard that before, that it would be an illegal act to do that. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Of course, we talked with Bruce Rainnie off the top of the show today and shared some memories of the curling legend, the late Collen Jones, who spent her entire career here in Nova Scotia, right? She represented our province well. She represented our country well. She was, and I think I said it earlier today, that you can't really talk about curling in Canada over the last 20 or 30 years without mentioning Collen Jones. She is, as I said earlier, the word legend gets tossed around an awful lot. But I think that her career and her dedication not only to the sport, but to her career at the CBC and just representing Nova Scotia and the Maritimes certainly puts her in that legendary category, at least in my opinion. If you have some thoughts you'd like to share about Collen Jones, here's an opportunity to do so. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I came across this story, and it's been happening for some time, but I came across it because there have been a couple of new additions to it. We've had discussion here on this show on several occasions, particularly when it comes to discussion about regional council and elected officials. And the fact that we do not have a mechanism to fire politicians. When they're elected, it can happen, but it's very difficult to happen, and it can't be initiated, at least to my understanding is, it cannot be initiated from a constituent. It has to be something from the party and so on and so forth. And several of you have called the show and say that we need a mechanism in order to do that. We need the ability to hold our elected officials to account, other than every 4 years when we have the ability to fire them or to grant them another 4 years. And some of you have suggested that we need to have recall legislation in Nova Scotia in order to do that. I don't know if you've been following what's going on in Alberta right now, but Alberta has recall legislation. We saw it, I think it was with the mayor of Calgary, wasn't it? Isn't that one of the more prominent cases? Which ended up failing. Now there are 14 members of that provincial legislature that are facing recall over one reason or another. They vary. A lot of them are of the governing party that is, of course, run by Danielle Smith. 14. Now, I'm going to suggest that once these things get past the signature stage, that they probably are going to fail. But this has now kind of got a grip on the government in Alberta. And that's my worry about recalls, right? If a decision's made and you don't like it, right, you're not going to please everybody. And if you make a decision and can initiate this and get enough people behind you to do this and bring it forward, then that's what's happening. And I just wonder if these 14 or 15 or whatever the number is now of these politicians that are facing recall, there has to be a vote, or there could be a vote, and there's going to be a dollar figure attached to that. So I think it's a matter of weighing the ability to fire a politician mid-term as opposed to waiting the full 4 years, or if this becomes the ability for an organized group to launch it, for lack of a better term, a vendetta. We talked about code of conduct here in Nova Scotia that is now currently being reworked because of that very thing. And I wonder if the Alberta model is going to put an end to recalls in Canada based on that very same principle, that an organized group is using the tools available to them to wage their own campaign against an elected official. That's what we've heard from a number of councilors and mayors outside of HRM in Nova Scotia about why they needed a change to the code of conduct rules. Now we're seeing it on a provincial level with recall legislation in Alberta. If you haven't seen it or read about it, I urge you to, for particularly those of you that have asked for this kind of legislation. And I think this has always been my biggest concern about this is that it's going to just spiral out of control. Because, like it or not, politicians are going to make decisions, right or wrong, right? They're going to make decisions, and they're not going to please everybody, no matter what side you're on. And if the recourse for this is immediately to call their job in question and launch this, there's going to be a cost associated with that. And I'm going to suggest that most of these aren't going to be successful. But there's still a cost associated with that, right? And in the world of budgets and budget deficits and tax increases, is it really worth it? Just my thoughts. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. If you don't want me to shut up and get to the phones, And then pick up the phone and dial it. Lines are wide open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. Welcome back. This is the open hour, and the beauty of the open hours is that we get to talk to everybody that's out there in as the saying goes, radio land. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We begin with David. David, how are you?
Not too bad. I just wanted to pass my condolences to Collen Jones' family and everybody. She will be lost.
Absolutely will be missed.
Forgotten.
Yeah, no doubt. She's certainly going to be ingrained in Nova Scotia history for many, many years.
And I'm surprised that they don't have a book open that people go write messages in, like the library did for Jack Layton when he passed away.
A book of condolence. That's a great idea, David.
Yeah. Get all Canadians to sign it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, but another situation that... you had a few guests on for the Christmas hamper for seniors.
Yep.
And I was talked to Brittany. I was talked to Nicole.
Okay.
And we had things all straightened around, but there's a blooper. I don't have a car.
Okay.
Because you had to go pick it up.
Okay.
And I don't have a car to drive.
Oh, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, so if anybody signed up for it, you have to go pick it up yourself. So.
All right, David, appreciate it, sir.
Do it. All right.
Have a good one.
Oh, and another one.
Very quickly.
The people from the bonfire on Roby Street. I was just wondering how they're doing. Just get them back in again.
Oh, the bonfire restaurant you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard.
Okay, all right.
Maybe somebody has. David, I appreciate it. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Scott to the show. Scott, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. I just want to express my condolences to Collen Jones' family. Our country and our province lost a legend the other day, and it really breaks my heart, Dan. That's all I got to say.
Appreciate it, Scott. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Even if you weren't a curling fan, you knew Colleen from her work with the CBC, right? She was doing the morning news, oh my goodness, for forever. Jordy Morgan worked with her. That's so far back. I'm not saying that Jordy's old, but Jordy worked with her when they launched CBC News World. So that goes back a minute or two. And always... never afraid to take risks on the curling ice, particularly, but even in the journalism realm, some of the stories that I remember Colleen doing on CBC, she would she'd get right in there and roll up her sleeves and whatever the story of the day was, if it was riding a horse or doing some walking through the woods or whatever it was, Colleen was out there and would do so. And let's not forget. From what Mr. Rainnie told us, Bruce Rainnie told us off the top of the show, she also covered like 11 Olympic Games for CBC. So certainly is going to be missed, and I don't think legend is I think legend is the appropriate title for Collen Jones. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Chris.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Look, just a couple of comments on your preamble there about the powers of recall in Alberta and so on. I went online and checked it out, actually, when I heard about it going on. And it's pretty easy out there to launch one of these initiatives. And I understand and agree with your suggestion that it could be a vindictive thing. And in Alberta's case, and with 14 of them, I don't doubt but what it is. I'm guilty of being one of your callers that has repeatedly stated the fact that I think we need some sort of power of recall or some way to get rid of councillors and other politicians.
Right.
But I have a suggestion that if anybody out there wants to weigh in on it, I'd be curious to see what other people think about this. How about if we institute a program whereby our councillors at budget time, as they're deliberating now, that for every percentage of tax increase over and above the CPI, they get a corresponding percentage of decrease in their paycheck. For example, if it was 2% CPI and they raised the taxes 10%, there's an 8% difference. They would get an 8% pay cut. It could be reinstated the following year if they balance the budget without a tax increase. What do you think of that idea, Dan?
Well, it certainly would hold them a little bit more to account, right? I mean, it certainly would in the business world. I mean, Chris, the business world, when you have bonuses, we talk about bonuses a lot. Mm-hmm. Usually bonuses have some kind of performance indicator that you have to hit, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point, in that if there's no immediate and this power of recall or the ability to recall them, that's time consuming. It often probably won't work, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a vindictive thing or a partisan thing or whatever. But if your paycheck is ultimately going to be affected negatively, I think that a lot of cases they'll find ways to cut things out of the budget and come to a reasonable balance on it. But anyway, if there's anybody else out there that's either for that or against it or whatever, I'd like to hear what other people have to say. And Dan, thanks very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I, too, have been digging into this. And the way that I understand it, the way that it works in Alberta is that somebody can petition to have somebody recalled, and then the government has the ability to approve that. And once it's approved, right, and that's what's happened in Alberta, it's 14 now by the last article that I've seen have been approved. Then 40% of all eligible voters in the riding within now 90 days have to sign a petition. So they have to gain the signatures of 40% of the electorate in the jurisdiction that the person is representing, and then it would move on from there. That's the phase that we got to when they tried to recall the mayor of Calgary, if you can remember. That failed. Once it got to that point, they didn't garner enough signatures, my recollection. I get it isn't a huge cost, right? If you have to get if you get the petition approved by the government, then it's the onus on the person or the group that is fighting for this recall to get those signatures, right? But at the end of the day, time-consuming process and the ability for it to become, as Chris said, vindictive, I think is there. Should there be performance-based stuff? Interesting idea, isn't it? You know, we have in the corporate world, in commission sales and something along those lines, we have bonuses, right? And if you hit X amount of budget, or you hit the buzzword, the key performance indicators, then you are awarded a bonus. Maybe we work something into that when it comes to budgeting, particularly at the municipal level. Are councillors entirely driven by the salary that they make? Would it be enough of an incentive for them to maybe take a second and third hard look at the budget? I think that remains to be seen, doesn't it? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Very quickly before the break, we have an email that comes to us from Rob. It says, here's two questions. If Nova Scotia Power estimated power bills based on last year's usage, how can the bills be so much higher than last year? That's a fair question. I don't understand it. He goes on to write, as well, how many customers have reported estimated bills being much lower than expected rather than much higher than expected? Is it possible Nova Scotia Power purposely estimated bills on the high side, knowing that they would have that money for months, providing them as a windfall? As that money's invested, will customers be reimbursed for these forced loans to NSP? And could this also explain not paying contractors for months? Rob, great questions. Kind of got touched on during the debate yesterday at the Legislative Assembly or the Legislative Committee. Mr. Gregg said that the utility would not benefit from this overpayment. He said that there would do an audit at the end of it to make sure that didn't happen. Now, if you take that one step further. Okay, let's audit it, but let's not have Nova Scotia Power audit it. Let's have a third party audit it and do the forensic audit stuff and show that that is in fact the case. Great questions, though, Rob. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Open hour continues after the news. Welcome back. The open hour continues. Lots of lines open, folks. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your opportunity. Talk about whatever it is you want. Again, those numbers, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let us welcome Jeff to the program. Jeff, how are you?
Very good. Couple things. First off, with the only place Nova Scotia Power gets to make money is from customers. So if they levy a fine against them, is that not just a fine to us as customers?
Well, that was something I had mentioned earlier, that if we fine them, that's just going to come out of their general revenue, which is money that you and I are giving them.
Yeah, that's my theory too.
Right.
The other thing is a topic for the future maybe. As a driver, and it bugs me every day on days like this where it's foggy rain, how come when we have daylight running lights on, they don't have tail lights automatically with them?
I've asked that question for years
all the way across
years.
Canada.
Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense.
Like I was just driving here and I could barely see the guy in front of me. And yeah, it's daytime, but he doesn't have range enough to turn his headlights on.
Right.
And anyway, that was just a curious to be whether we had a guest sometime in the safety world that could explain why they don't have that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
not a bad idea, Jeff.
Have a good show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I know that vehicles are trying to, at least some vehicles are trying to take that out of the equation. I have a setting on my vehicle it's auto, right? And the lights come on and the tail lights come on immediately when I turn on my wipers. So if I forget, then that will take care of it. What I find is that older model cars, not old model cars, because when you turn the headlights on, that was the only way you could see the dash. But there was a gap there where we had digital dashboards, and people would come out of parking garages, right, where it's lit up like a Christmas tree, and open up the door and they go out and they forget to turn their headlights on, and they can see their dash, and they would just drive around with their headlights off. That I think is being fixed with the same kind of situation, but yeah, it's not safe, folks. If you're out there driving around today and you don't have your full lights on, turn them on so people can see you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Eric to the show. Eric, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
The other day there, you were talking about strong mayor powers, and I'm just wondering if it would be possible for the mayor to be able to have one veto for the year. For an example, there's been a lot of conversation about the bike lanes, and there's been a lot of conversation about the Windsor Street interchange. And the mayor should be able to look at something which would benefit the community better and override maybe what the council projects that they want to pass. So what that means is that if the bike lanes, what's more important to the overall well-being of the community, the Windsor Street interchange or just the bike lanes? And he should be able to make that decision. He should have at least one veto a year, and this might stop a lot of the controversy. I don't know what you think about that, but
there's always two sides, right, Eric? And the converse to that one is that if the mayor has a veto power, and we, if we're not talking about bike lanes or Windsor Street Exchange, we're talking about another issue, and council is fully in support of it, and people like it, and the mayor doesn't like it, he can just say no, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can't really. I suppose, Dan, you really can't win, but
right.
He should have at least. I think. Maybe one veto, maybe that would stop all the controversy. I really don't know how you would resolve that. But for him to be as powerless as he is, that doesn't make a lot of sense either, I don't think.
Thanks for the call, Eric. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It really is a conundrum, isn't it? The mayor of Halifax gets more votes, more people check a box for that position than any other position in the province, right? You know, you elect a premier. We don't vote for a premier, right? You elect a party person. Sometimes they get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000, 10,000 votes, right? The mayor gets like 50. So it really is a conundrum that many people are picking that person to hold that position, yet at the council table, that person has the same their vote weighs the same as everybody else's. Now, I've always been of the opinion with a mayor is that the mayor should be the coach, right? Should be able to try and get their agenda done that they ran on by being able to put enough counselors on the field, so to speak, to use a sports analogy, to be able to pass the legislation. We're not seeing that this time around, not even close this time around. So it really is an interesting situation to watch unfold. I don't know what the answer is. I worry about strong mayor powers, and I think I've said this on the show. I worry about strong mayor powers because one person can supersede the wishes of the many, if that makes any sense, right? If it's and I know the bike lanes is probably outside of this discussion and the Windsor Street Exchange for some point, but if it's another issue that the constituents don't want, the councillor represents that at the council table, and yet the mayor just says, well, no, whatever, we're doing it anyway. That's the part about strong mayor powers that I'm worrying about. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Welcome Carlos to the show. Carlos, how are you?
I'm good. How are you then?
I'm well. What's on your mind, sir?
Good. Yeah, no, I fully support what you said about recall the process. In BC, they also have that, even though it might take time, etc. So on. But I think the people who have the power to put you in should have the power to put you out, right? And doesn't have to wait for 4 years. So I think that's something that should be put into practice. Also, to maybe institutionalize town halls. You know, we saw that happening at District 8 with Councillor Virginia Hitch. Would be nice to see happening in other areas to the other districts as well. You see, sometimes we watch those videos in the U.S. where the representatives go back to the area and people yelling, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?"
Right.
So we should have that here. We should have, that you are forced to face your community members after you got elected and perhaps have shown your true colors. Just a way to get more participation, channels of people at the bottom level. Anyway, but that's it.
All right, Carlos, appreciate it.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's an interesting idea. Town halls are, I think, an effective way to get community involved in the process on things. Right? We've seen different groups as of late hosting meetings because of a worry of different levels of different forms of government not engaging the community. Right? I'm thinking about the Sandy Lake thing, and I'm thinking about the proposal for that development on the border of Blue Mountain Birch Cove Lakes Park. And them being special planning areas. Maybe you have to have 2 a year. Maybe you need to have 2 town halls a year or you don't get those community development funds. Right? And you have to face as Carlos said, you have to face the people who put you there. I think that's a wonderful opportunity to do that. And to be fair, there are some counselors out there that do that already. Right, that are already doing this. I don't think communicating via a newsletter is enough communication for an elected official. I think that you need to face your electorate. Now, we do what we can here on the Todd Veinotte Show to try and give you the opportunity to hold your elected officials to account. And we do that on Monday, every Monday. And that's why the Counselors on the Hot Seat segment, I think, is valuable moving forward. But mandatory town halls, I think that's something I could get behind. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. It's really dark. Vanessa's got her lights on in there, her Christmas lights that she put up, and it's the only thing I can see her through. It's wild, right? And it was 4:45 last night, and the streetlights were on. It's just that this time of the year, right? It's dark. It really is dark, and I know it affects everybody's moods. We need some sunlight. I get it, we need the rain, but my goodness, let's see the sun. Kevin, how are you?
How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
I was just wondering about Nova Scotia Power. Can they not rent the lines out like the same way they do for internet, where companies could come in and give you a better deal?
Well, the problem is the generation, right? Like, where are they going to get the power from?
Yeah, well, on the internet, they're like Purple Cow, all the Citywide, they rent the lines
right
of the Eastlink, and then they give you a better deal.
They do.
Why can't they do that with electricity?
Because you're not generating something for internet, right? You're just providing an on-ramp. You'd have to literally have the ability to make power to sell it to people, and Nova Scotia Power has that. That's the only one that does it.
Yeah, but I've noticed that when I was over in parts of Northern Ireland that there's different companies come in and take up your bills, but the Northern Ireland company still runs the show. But there's different companies come in and give you better deals.
So like different distribution companies is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to look into that, Kevin.
Yeah, and then they'll cut your prices down, and they're competing with each other.
Right. Well, yeah, fair. They'll let the market decide. Fair point, Kevin. I appreciate it, sir.
Okay.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We've talked about that for a long time. The government, the McNeil government, ran on it. They ran an election campaign on breaking the monopoly of Nova Scotia Power. Never happened, right? I think that if and I know there's some work being done on creating a distribution company that does this, but at the end of the day, Nova Scotia Power is the entity that generates the actual kilojoules. Is that the right word? Of energy. They're the ones who create the power. So if you were a third party and had your third party rent the lines, then you still have to buy the power from Nova Scotia. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure how that model would work, but it's outside the box thinking, and I really think that moving forward, we need to do that, and I think it's part of the big push that the Premier has on Wind West. I think that is the way that Nova Scotia breaks the monopoly, and not becoming the sole. Or relying solely on Nova Scotia Power for everything. My understanding of Wind West is that the Premier wants companies to come in and build the infrastructure and build the wind turbines and generate the power and get it to the shore, and then we have a distribution company and as Sean Fraser told us earlier today, that needs to be more robust and so on and so forth. But the more people are out there, and who's to say that it has to be one company that generates all that wind power, right? There's four different zones that they've identified. What's to say that there can't be four different companies that do those that build turbines in those four different zones? And then they would be competing against each other, and that could be of a benefit to you and I, wouldn't it? Putting competition into the markets is probably a good thing. In fact, I know it's a good thing. But we have to get past Nova Scotia Power being responsible for everything. If you remember back, if you're listening yesterday to our caller who has this off-grid house, that story continues to just amaze me. That this fella has built a house, built it with carpenters like Red Seals, got a Red Seal electrician to come in and do all the power. Everything's to code. Yet in order for him to get an occupancy permit, Nova Scotia Power had to give him the go-ahead. Even though he's 2 kilometers or 2 miles away from the closest pole. He's not anywhere near using their power. And then yesterday said that, in order to qualify for Efficiency Nova Scotia rebates on the stuff that he's using to generate renewable electricity, you have to be on the grid. What? It's wild. Nova Scotia Power is certainly attached to everything. I think the first step in fixing the situation that we have here is that the regulator that is responsible for keeping an eye on Nova Scotia Power, and that is the Nova Scotia Energy Board. It used to be the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board. UARB. It's now the Nova Scotia Energy Board, the NSEB, I think is the right an acronym. That board needs to be more accountable. They're the ones who are supposed to be keeping an eye on the cookie jar, right? And they're the ones that are responsible for saying yay to 4% increase in power rates on the back of this cyber attack and us getting overbilled and overcharged. I still don't understand that decision. I think that is the most powerful board, the most powerful entity in the province of Nova Scotia. They do everything from setting electricity rates or approving electricity rate increases to setting the price for gasoline. And it's unelected. There's no accountability there. I think that is the starting point for us to try and figure this out. Because at the end of the day, when we build these turbines out in the ocean, if it ever gets built, and let's not forget that this isn't going to happen, some people are putting it out 20 years before we start to see power generated from that, even if it gets approved today. When we see that electrical generation, then the almost called them the UARB, the NSEB is still going to be responsible for setting. So is there a different rate for land base? Is there a different rate for Nova Scotia Power versus whomever the company is that does this? There's lots of questions that need to be answered with Wind West, even though it's still technically on the drawing board, right? I think this cyber attack and the fallout from that and some of the problems that we're enduring now as a community because of it, I think this should be the catalyst for us to really look for some serious change in how we deal with the power utility in Nova Scotia. Fines are fine. Fines are fine. Fines are great. But as one of our callers said, if we fine Nova Scotia Power $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, that's just going to come from us, really. And if we take that much money out of the general revenue or whatever it is out of Nova Scotia Power, wouldn't that prevent them from fixing some of the things that we have, like the problems with the power lines and keeping the lights on and the grid and the trees and all that stuff? So at the end of the day, are we really accomplishing anything by doing it? Last word today goes to Steve. Steve, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for taking the call. I'm just jumping in here a little bit late, but, that guy from Nova Scotia Power, he's a high-flying executive making all kinds of bonus money, right? But he says all the insurance is going to cover. But you know what happens at your house when you put an insurance claim in?
Yep.
You know what goes up?
Your insurance.
Your insurance rates.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then, you know what I mean? And then that gets passed along to us, the consumer, because the government of the past obviously made a deal with Nova Scotia Power that guarantees a certain profit.
9%.
So no matter what comes, push or shove, we're always going to pay. They got us by the short and curlies. So, maybe this guy needs to step up to the plate because he screwed up and give up some of his golden bonus money and pay the piper, because these guys all got it way too good. We're paying through the nose for terrible service all the time, right? And at the end of the day, these guys are out of touch with reality. You got this guy making, $500,000 a year, and income of the average Nova Scotian, maybe $35,000-$40,000 on average. So these guys are truly out of touch with reality. And, I think what the government or some private industry needs to do, maybe we need to build a couple, private nuclear reactors and, start selling, power like some previous callers said, and creating our own source, whether that be renewables through, nuclear, water, wind, whatever the case may be. But we just can't be giving the farm away anymore.
Appreciate the call, Steve. Thanks, man. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. All valid points. Maybe that's where the fine should lay, right? Instead of finding Nova Scotia Power as an entity, maybe the board or the CEO has to weigh that. I don't know if that's even legal, but it certainly would send a message that we as customers have the ones that have been done wrong here. And now your information's out there and floating around in the dark web like mine is. And who knows when that's going to come back to bite us, right? And who knows when, if it's March, how many more estimated bills are you going to get? Thank you to all of our guests who joined the program today and imparted their knowledge upon us. I truly appreciate it. Thank you to all of you who dialed the numbers and joined the conversation. You make my day when you do it. I learn something each and every day here on this program, and I look forward to the open hours every day. Tomorrow's going to be a bit of a different show. We're going to do a live edition of Mortgage 101 starting at 10 o'clock tomorrow. It's Financial Literacy Month. Clint Wilkins will be here. We've got a bunch of guests that are going to join him, so that's going to be the first hour of the show. Open hour for the second, and Dr. Jeff Goodall will be here for our weekly sit-down with the veterinarian in the third hour. Until then, everyone, be well, and remember, be kind to one another.